Screenwatcher, welcome back to another Double Take Review, where we give you our 2-take double dose injection of pop culture criticism, because that's what the doctor ordered. Just a heads up, first half of the show will be spoiler free for your convenience.
Look at him.
At which point we'll be swinging.
What is he even saying?
Territory where we put a big
gibberish
warning on the screen, just to let you know.
Arrogant, pompous,
in-house spoiler monkeys.
monkey loving. How many word is that? 300? How many did you give me? 2? Want some respect?
Without further ado,
If I could just snap my fingers and be done with you.
Oh, dude, I don't feel so good.
You okay, man? Was that the burrito?
It was not the burrito.
It's perfectly balanced now. And here's the review of Avengers: Endgame.
We're in the Endgame now. Before we're done, we still have one promise to keep. If you can't protect the Earth, you can be damn sure we'll avenge it.
Alright, so fun isn't something that one considers watching a 3-hour movie. But does this 3-hour movie put a smile on your face?
It did put a smile on my face, man. I really enjoyed it. There was some moments in the beginning where I was questioning if I would enjoy it, but the end just hit so hard. It's really, honestly, hard to not like it. But no, I really did like it, and the end has incredible highs. What did you think?
This is amazing. Like, for the previous movie, they did a really good job putting all the characters in the story. With this one, I think it was even more impressive how they could get those storylines and get them to the finish line. I think universally people would be happy with how things ended up at the end.
Yes, it's there's a lot of fan service in it. I think, given the down points of the previous movie, Infinity War, you can really only go up, but a lot of fan service comes with that. But that's okay, because we're like 22 movies deep in this universe, and we could use some highs given the lows in the previous film.
Without spoiling anything, tell me the top 3 things you liked about this film.
The fan service, number 1. I was coming into the movie thinking that it was going to be like a closure of 22 movies, but after finishing it, I feel that it's more ending a chapter than like an ultimate end game,
Mm-hmm.
So I do appreciate that it is closure on something, but still the possibility that more will come. And I'm sure, given it's Marvel, so a lot of good things will come in the future.
Sure.
And the third thing, I really like how the actors really portrayed their roles. Like, it's silly, like running around as Hawkeye or Iron Man or Captain America, but they play their parts with such devotion. And we've had so many films to get to know these characters that in this film, a culmination of everything, and you understand their character, and the way that the actor portrays them is just it's really believable, in this universe, and what that actor brings to that role.
Yeah.
What about you? Tell me something you liked, and then tell me something maybe you didn't like.
Sure. I actually really liked. I guess I don't want to get into specifics of it, but I really liked what they did with the character of Thor, and that's something that we spoke about before when we started with the first Thor movie. How Thor was not a funny character. There were a couple of jokes here and there, but by the third movie in the series, Ragnarok, he fully embraces the comedy, and by this one,
they nail it.
Yeah, I mean, the movie was grim, and the addition of Thor just made it light, made it funny, and also there were scenes that were emotional and heavy, and Chris Hemsworth was able to do them all. When it came to emotional scenes,
yeah. He had a lot of range.
Yeah, I guess one thing that I might not have liked a lot was how some of the characters ended up at the end. But like, I don't want to talk about it when we get to spoilers.
Do you feel like, before we jump into spoilers, do you feel like there was proper resolve / resolution for, the core Avengers?
Sure. Yeah, I thought like we got the ending that was the best way possible, because before the movie came out, we knew some of the contracts were over. It's not even a spoiler.
Well, they still find ways to defy
Right.
expectations.
Right. So like, what I got was like, oh, okay, that's how we're gonna end it. So I guess.
And you never really know, as you're watching the movies, you never really know. Being film buffs as we are, we know that, there are movies in development. We've seen trailers for movies that haven't even come out yet. And, your brain is like, well, wait a minute, how could that work? Because this person died and blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
But the filmmakers do a really good job of constantly making you wonder, well, is that going to happen? How could that happen if this happened in this movie?
Right.
So, yeah. Yeah, I think there's obviously a lot more to talk about in spoilers. Before we head over there, anything you can tell them?
Please go watch it. Like, this is, if you're a Marvel fan, go ahead.
Is it better than Infinity War?
I think like it's a hard question to answer, because without Infinity War, this movie doesn't make sense. I think like they just complement each other.
So interesting, because you remember that original press release years ago, Kevin Feige was on stage and he's like, it's going to be Infinity War Part 1 and Infinity War Part 2. I kind of feel like this movie was Infinity War Part 2 as opposed to Avengers Endgame,
Especially like when it started, it was like really on a down note. And for a big blockbuster, I was like, wow, this is kind of dark. Like, that's what DC was always aiming for, to start like on a really dark note.
Great title, but I think the story rather reflects Infinity War Part 2 than Endgame.
Yeah.
But yeah, great marketing though.
Yeah, no, totally. Please go see it. And
yeah, it's a great film. I think that I've only seen it once, and this is our initial reaction. I think I prefer Infinity War more. However, I don't think that takes away from this one, because Infinity War was like up there. And I think if you look back at our old review, I was like, we were both like, how can you top it? How can you top it? I don't think this one tops it, but I do think it's a great like
conclusion to.
Yeah, it's like where do you go when you're up here? And this one does a great job of taking it.
But it's not. But it's not disappointing. Like
not
like
in
with
any
the Dark
way,
Knight. Like, remember the Dark Knight series, Dark Knight Rises? People were kind of disappointed. This is not it.
Right.
Like you're gonna be satisfied by the end of it. But it just like.
I will say that if you watch it, like the beginning, you might think, oh, this is boring, or this is taking a while to get where we want to go, or I didn't go watch an Avengers movie for this. But if you're patient, the end has so many highs, multiple highs, and I got multiple chills from many different things that happened in the end.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I definitely recommend you watch it too.
It's time.
Yep. Cue those spoiler monkeys. 22 movies in, pretty much a 3-hour movie. We are going to get some awesome after credits, bro. And we waited in the mid credits and nothing, just some black screen. And then we waited after the credits and we heard like a hammer, like a blacksmith hammer.
Right.
And that's it. That's the first, as you said, the first movie that in the Marvel Universe that hasn't had a post-credit sequence.
Right. So that was definitely different. But I guess that kind of makes sense, because the story kind of concluded here. I know they're making other movies, but there was no need for them to put something here.
Well, wouldn't it have been awesome though? And I've been saying this for a long time. Like, I really wanted an XMen tease. Like, it didn't need to be over the top. Just something that lets us know.
But you already like it's known that they don't have any plans at this point.
But like, you know how they went back and they shot that shawarma scene for Avengers 1? Like, they did that after the fact. Like, maybe once the Disney acquisition was completed, why didn't they go back and do something fan service again after the fact?
Well, I guess in our plan for this summer is to also review X-Men Dark Phoenix.
There's no way it's included if that's what you're
right.
implying.
No. What I'm saying is Dark Phoenix supposedly is going to be the last of the X-Men movie. So probably Disney is going to like reboot the whole thing.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. But like, this was their opportunity to introduce their version.
Well, like, it's like they got their hands full with this movie. Like, all these
That's
characters.
True. That is true.
Like
I think
this.
it would have been. While we're talking about X-Men, early in the film, they talked about, there's a time jump, obviously, after the Thanos snap. And there's a short little pointer scene where I think Black Widow and Captain Marvel are talking about the planet emitting cosmic waves. And I thought that might be a really good opportunity for them to bring in the X-Men, because if the planet is like doing this weird radiation for whatever reason, then not only would it have given these like mutants a reason to like properly mutate and become the X-Men, but also there was that time jump. So there was at least 5 years for I don't know, like Xavier or Magneto to get to know each other or something, like get that ball rolling. But as you said, there's no X-Men tease.
I mean, Disney, if you're listening, this is a good idea.
I still think they might do something with that. I know it might not be for X-Men, but they're going to do something with that. They included that scene for a reason. I know it was to find Thanos with the Infinity Stones, but I still think that it affects the world in some way. So affecting the world, did you think that, like, didn't you wonder like what happened to Aunt May, or why she like was around after Peter Parker came back?
Well, I guess we got an explanation. When people disappeared, they didn't die. They lived on a different reality. Remember? Spider-Man said, "Hey, you suddenly disappeared, and I was there with Doctor Strange." So when people disappeared, they were in a different reality, living.
Did he say that? Because I thought he was saying... I don't know if that's true, because what happened by him snapping the finger was they were all brought back instantaneously. If they were all brought back instantaneously, then that means that Spider-Man would have been on the weird planet out in the universe, and so would Doctor Strange. He'd be there too. So it's not necessarily a different reality. They just would have came back at the same time, and then Doctor Strange would have been like, "Oh yeah, this is the future that I foretold. So let me spin up these rings, and I'll bring everybody together."
I think that's something that, like, on second viewing,
I'll have to watch it again,
because, like,
but that's
there was just one line. So
I know that was something people were theorizing, is maybe they didn't die, they were just like transported to another universe.
Well, in their reality, in the reality that we saw with Iron Man, Captain America.
Here's a question that I don't think that was answered. Remember in Infinity War when Thanos, immediately after the finger snap, he goes into this orange realm, and it's young Gamora there, and she says, "Was it worth it?" And he says, we didn't get his answer. It just cuts to him on his like retreat, trying to recoup from the battle. But they didn't answer that. Like, did they answer that for you? Was there anything in the movie that hinted at like what that orange realm was, or why young Gamora was there?
Well, I guess not really. But by the time that this movie starts, like, you're completely in a different mindset.
Yeah, but it does make me wonder why they included that scene. Is it possible that they were going to go one way and then... Did they shoot the movies back to back?
Yeah.
Okay. So interesting why that scene was included.
Since you've been listening to a lot of fans theorizing,
go ahead.
There was one thing that people were like super worried about, and that was about
Ant-Man jumping up Thanos' ass and then expanding, and that's how they won? No, that didn't happen.
Well, that was a theory, but another theory was that people were kind of actually upset that Captain Marvel is going to come in and overpower everything. Right. What did you think?
Dude,
what did you think?
I may not have liked Captain Marvel in the previous movie, but this one, she was toned down. She still got to blow up her spaceships, which is great.
But they used her just enough.
Yes, and they also, there's a period in the movie where she goes away and does her own thing. And then she comes back at the end.
Because if she was there, then
properly, The only thing I would have liked to have heard more about is, like, which we didn't really get a whole lot of time because there's a time jump. She came to Earth because of Fury. Like, she was tracking him down, only to leave again and not really contribute anything to the Avengers. Not really. Not from what we saw.
But that was a choice, because they knew that they created a monster that is so powerful that is gonna, like, basically...
I mean, that brings up a lot of questions too. Like, she took down Thanos' ship in one little blast. Like, if you include her in future movies, like,
the way they used her, it was like using a hammer. So it's just like so powerful, but at the same time, like, it's not pretty. So like we love Captain America. We want to see him succeed. But I think last time when we talked about Captain America, you said something that I kind of disagreed with you, but now I kind of have to agree with you. Captain Marvel doesn't have a lot of personality.
Sure.
So
she serves her purpose as being a strong character.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, so Russo brothers kind of knew how to use Brie Larson in the capacity that was enough for this movie.
I heard that she actually shot these scenes before they did Captain Marvel.
Is that
so? She had to define her character based off of her appearance in Infinity War.
Okay, I'm not sure about that. Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. They probably handled her better than the directors of the actual Captain Marvel movie. But it was nice to see her inclusion. And again, like you said, it wasn't what everybody thought. She was going to come in and save the day. She properly was a badass with Thanos, yet still wasn't like something super overpowered over him. Some character that did overpower him, which I thought was awesome, was Scarlet Witch. And that was awesome because a lot of fans had been theorizing, you know how like she holds Thanos back in Infinity War with one hand and the other she's destroying the Mind Stone on Vision. Everybody was like, she's doing it with one hand and Thanos is holding back like that. Yeah. Whereas, you know, he just tosses other characters aside. And she is the like initial deciding factor that like adds to his demise. You know, she tears away his armor. And then a bunch of other characters get to go in there and slam on him. A ton of fan service moments. You got Captain America picking up Mjolnir. That was one of the... And it just keeps going. Like, those chill scenes... Like, I don't normally, like, emote in the theater and, like, cheer and laugh and clap and all that. And I found myself doing it over and over and over. I think I clapped when he said assemble. And then when you got Sam saying, on your left, I'm like, oh, man. And I cheered for that. And then, of course, him picking up Mjolnir.
And a different fan favorite came back, Black Panther.
Yes. And then all of them came back, you know. You got Groot showing back up and then Spider-Man swinging in. And everybody got their moment. And
since we were talking about spoilers, also talk about who died at the end.
Yeah, so... The first character of the initial 6 Avengers, right, was Black Widow. Black Widow gave her life so they could get the Soul Stone, and that was the first victim. And then the ultimate one of all these movies was, everybody could see it a mile away, it was Iron Man. But still, I thought it was done in a good fashion, like a proper fashion. And he got that line. He got to say his line. He's like, you might be imminent, Thanos, but I am Iron Man. And then he snaps his fingers. Yeah. And that line is important because that's kind of what started the whole MCU.
Sure.
You know?
There's another character that also goes out but doesn't die.
Captain America is done, but also done in a very tasteful way. I really like how they sent him back to the past. He got to live his life. And then...
Doesn't that mess up with the timeline, though? Like, I thought, like...
Well, Ashton, since you wanted to talk about timelines, I was there being like, which timelines are messed up, blah, blah, blah. There's a ton of alternate realities, even if... Okay, so the plan was, Hulk, from the beginning, was like, what we're going to do is we're going to borrow Mjolnir, we're going to borrow these 6 stones, but we're going to return them. As soon as we're done doing what we're doing, we're going to return them back, like... seconds after we took them, so that way it's like we didn't affect anything. However, after watching the movie, you see that they actually affected many things. Just off the top of my head, shortly after the Battle of New York, Loki grabs the Space Stone and disappears. Okay, that's different than what we saw in the first Avengers movie, because in the first Avengers movie, Thor takes Loki.
You forgot Thor.
Thor takes Loki
Shame on you.
to Asgard. Okay. So that's the proper chronological timeline. But if Loki escapes with the time stone, then that F's up essentially everything, okay? Even if you return those items, I'm thinking, because...
But I see your point.
There's a ton of splinters, but what if they return... Like, the briefcase was kicked over to Iron Man, and then he had to pick it up, right, and then run away.
Mm-hmm.
What would happen if, I don't know how Captain America did this all by himself, but he somehow thwarted across the universes, he somehow thwarted all of the Avengers trying to get the stones, and sneakily, and he was able to somehow put them all back in the same spot.
I guess that's why they didn't show it. So we're
too hard. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like, there's all these realities that could have potentially happened, and I'm just gonna say them right now since I haven't gotten to watch it a second time and like scrutinize it. But yeah, if Loki did escape with the Space Stone, then how? That's a whole nother reality that they effed up. And the only problem with that is they made a point. They made one of the characters. It's the lady from Doctor Strange, where she says, my future reality is in jeopardy if you take it. So even if you correct your own, my own gets effed up. And like I said...
But I guess the explanation was if they get it back, then it wouldn't change.
Yes, but in all of the flashbacks we saw Tony Stark meet his father. We saw essentially Captain America almost come close to close with Peggy Carter. We saw Loki escape with the Space Stone. We saw... the whole Nebula thing. She straight up kills her past self. I'm not sure how that works with like time. I was fully expecting her to disappear.
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely...
Granted, these time travel movies are complicated. Like in almost every time travel movie, it really doesn't make sense when they start folding in on each other. But I mean,
when we were talking about it, there are things that doesn't make sense on the surface unless they have a good explanation.
I mean, I'd have to really sit down and like figure it out. Some time travel movies do it really good. They were talking about there's like two theories with time travel. Either A, if you in the future like decided to go back to the past and change something, you would go back to the past, attempt to change it, think that you changed it going forward, return to your present day only to find out that was meant to happen the whole time. Well,
I guess like one thing that I couldn't understand was...
So you can't change it. It's an inevitability.
They came back to the present time. That was 5 years after everything, right? That was the present time.
Their own present, yeah.
But why was Spider-Man still in high school?
Well, that's what I was saying. Either let's pretend Ned did not disappear, then he would be 5 years older than Peter in a different grade,
and they wouldn't be in high school.
Good point.
Yeah,
it'd be in college. So maybe Ned disappeared with Peter. Maybe May disappeared with Peter too, and that would avoid the complications of like having to let her know that her son died and all that.
Right.
That's my initial guess right now is that May, Ned, Peter, and MJ and that entire class disappeared. That's the only way to make it as smooth as possible. But you're right. There's a lot of problems.
I guess I'm interested in seeing the
to see him back. But
new Spider-Man movie to see where they pick up.
I don't think they will address it incredibly.
Like at all. Like they just...
But the world itself is effed up. Can you imagine if... That's what I was kind of interested in seeing is like if half of the world disappeared, think of all of the things that could change. Like there would be a lot of looters. I don't think that order would easily be established. I think it could potentially be a worse future for those characters, but they didn't bother to talk about that. All they talked about was like whales returning to the Hudson River or something.
Yeah.
And I also wanted to see... So if all these characters immediately come back, that's not necessarily a good thing either. What if some of them were in that spot where they were battling when Thanos' ship comes back? What if some of them were just there like having tea and lunch? They would just appear in the middle of the battle shortly after the snap, and then one of those four-armed monsters would have mauled them and ripped their face off. So they die immediately. I'm just saying, like, I'm just saying the future is messed up. They return to the messed up future. So it's not like super clean. But hey, we get Spider-Man and Black Panther back.
That's good.
So Wakanda forever.
That's all I wanted. Yeah. Okay. Every journey has an end, and I think this movie was a good conclusion. And we can now move on to the next movies in the series.
Bring on the XMen and the Silver Surfer. That's what I want. I want the Silver Surfer.
Well, thank you very much for watching our video. Please like and subscribe, and we're gonna come back soon with more videos.
Yeah, we'd like to end the show with a very heartfelt thank you to all of our dedicated and hardworking spoiler monkeys. Until next time, we hope to catch you again. Keep on screen watching.